Here's the first part of the story with high intensity, dynamic pacing, and a strong build-up to confrontation. I'll ensure each part is immersive and unique. The rain had been coming down in sheets that night, drowning the city in a dull, rhythmic hum. I was sitting in my car outside a quiet little restaurant, the kind of place people go when they don't want to be seen. The windshield wipers swept away the water just in time for me to get another glimpse inside. Another stab in the chest. Another punch to the gut. Kate was in there. Across from a man I didn't recognize. I had followed her. I hadn't planned on it. But when she left the house claiming she was meeting a friend from college, something inside me twisted the wrong way. The lies had been piling up, too neat, too perfect, like a story rehearsed in front of a mirror. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that I'd drive past the restaurant and go home. But the second I saw her inside, laughing, leaning in, reaching across the table to touch his hand, something snapped. I gripped the steering wheel, my breath coming fast. She was glowing. Not the way she did around me. Not the way she did when we'd go out for dinner and she'd scroll through her phone between bites. This was different. The way she looked at him, engaged, alive, made me feel like I'd been watching a stranger live inside my wife's skin. Then the real knife to the heart. She stood up, picked up her coat, and kissed him. Not a chaste, polite peck. A slow, familiar press of her lips against his, like she'd done it 100 times before. My stomach turned to lead. My hands were numb. I should have stormed in. I should have slammed the door open, knocked over a chair, made a scene. But I didn't. I watched, and I waited. I let her walk out, still smiling like she was in some perfect little dream. She pulled out her phone as she headed for her car. And I knew. She was about to text me. And she did. Hey babe, dinner ran late. Heading home now. Love you. Lies. I let the message sit there. I stared at the screen until the words blurred, then slowly, deliberately, I started my car. She had no idea. Not yet. I drove home before she did. I wanted to be there first. I wanted to see what kind of face she would wear when she walked through the door, what kind of lies she would stitch together when she looked me in the eye. I wanted to hear her voice wrap around another excuse, smooth and effortless, like it had been so many times before. The house was dark when I got in. The smell of her perfume still lingered in the air, a scent that wasn't for me. I stood in the kitchen, hands braced against the counter, heart hammering in my chest. My brain was moving too fast, too loud. I replayed everything I had just seen, every tiny detail that had been in front of me for months but only now made sense. The late nights. The new perfume. The dress. The way she had started turning away from me in bed, claiming she was just tired. She had been tired, all right. Tired from nights like tonight. Then, the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. I straightened up, sucked in a slow breath, and forced my face into something neutral. The front door opened and there she was, shaking off her coat like it had been a completely normal evening. She glanced at me and smiled like nothing had happened. Hey, she said, walking over to press a kiss to my cheek. I let her. Her lips were still warm from him. How was dinner? I asked, keeping my voice calm. She sighed, rolling her eyes. Ugh, good, but Sarah wouldn't shut up about her ex. You know how she gets. She set her purse on the counter and started taking off her earrings. I thought I was going to lose my mind. Sarah didn't exist. At least, not in the way she wanted me to believe. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. She was looking at me like she had done this 1,000 times before, like she could do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next, and I would never know. Except I did. I knew. And I was done pretending. So, did Sarah kiss you goodnight? Her hands froze on the clasp of her necklace. For a second, just a second, her expression flickered. Then she laughed. A forced laugh. The kind people make when they're trying to buy themselves time. What? She shook her head. What are you talking about? I stepped closer. I saw you. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. She blinked once, twice, like she was still trying to process what I had just said. Then her lips parted again and I saw it, the lie forming, the excuse loading up. I didn't give her the chance. I saw you, Kate. My voice was low, steady, sharper than I had ever heard it. At the restaurant. With him. The color drained from her face. And finally, there was no more room for lies. Her face twisted so fast it was almost impressive. Shock, then panic, then just like that she snapped into defense mode. You followed me? Her voice was sharp, indignant, like I was the one who had just been caught sneaking around. Like I was the problem. I didn't blink. I didn't have to. You're not as careful as you think you are. She scoffed, shaking her head. So what? You think I'm cheating because I had dinner with a friend? I tilted my head. A friend? You mean the one you kissed before getting in your car? Her jaw tightened. She was searching for an escape route, scrambling for the right words, but there weren't any. Not this time. So she did what cheaters do best. She lied. That wasn't what it looked like, she blurted out. I laughed. Actually laughed. Oh really? Then what was it? Because from where I was sitting, it looked like you had your tongue down some guy's throat. Her hands curled into fists. Are you serious right now? You're spying on me and twisting things in your head, and now you want to stand there acting like I'm the bad guy. There it was. The classic flip the script and play the victim routine. I folded my arms. Say his name. She hesitated. Too long. I leaned in just a little, watching her squirm. Go on, Kate. Say. His. Name. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. No name. No answer. Just the sound of her own guilt choking her. And then, because she knew she was cornered, she did something that almost made me pity her. She went for the final, desperate move. She cried. Not real tears. Weaponized ones. The kind designed to make me feel like I was the one hurting her. Do you even hear yourself? She choked out, her voice breaking perfectly on cue. I work all day, I come home to you, and this is what I get? Accusations? You don't even trust me? The audacity was suffocating. But I wasn't falling for it. Not anymore. I stayed silent, watching her unravel, letting her see that I wasn't buying a single word. And then, just like that, the tears stopped. Her face hardened. Like a mask slipping back into place. She sniffed, wiped her eyes, and suddenly, just like that, she wasn't sad anymore. She was angry. You know what? She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Believe whatever you want. I don't have to stand here and be accused of something I didn't do. And with that, she grabbed her purse and stormed out. No apology. No explanation. No fight to save what she had just shattered. Just an exit. Because in the end, she knew she was guilty. And she knew that I knew it too. I didn't chase her. I didn't call after her. I just stood there and let the door slam behind her, the echo of it vibrating through the house like the final note of a funeral song. A dead marriage finally making its last sound. I sank into the kitchen chair, staring at the spot where she had been standing just moments ago, replaying every second of our argument. The fake tears, the deflection, the way she had switched emotions like a light bulb. It was almost admirable how effortlessly she had tried to manipulate me, like this was just another night, just another argument she could twist in her favor. But she had messed up. She had left too fast. A woman who's innocent doesn't run. A woman who's innocent doesn't avoid saying his name. A woman who's innocent doesn't kiss another man in the middle of a rainy parking lot and then come home to lie through her teeth. I sat in silence, gripping my phone, feeling the weight of 1,000 questions pressing against my skull. How long had it been going on? Who was he? Did I even know him? Was this their first time, or had she been sneaking off for months while I sat at home like a clueless idiot waiting for her to bring me leftovers from whatever work event she had lied about that night? I didn't have answers. But I was going to get them. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. My mind raced. I could text her. Demand the truth. But she'd just keep dodging, keep lying, keep twisting the story until somehow it was all my fault. No, I needed proof. Real proof. So instead of texting her, I went into our phone records. We shared a plan, her idea, ironically, to keep things simple. And there it was, staring me in the face. A number I didn't recognize. Dozens of calls. Texts. Some of them over an hour long. Some of them at night, when she had been lying in bed next to me. I copied the number and ran it through a search. Nothing at first, just a basic listing. But then I tried it on social media. And my stomach dropped. His profile popped up instantly. James Carter. Coworker. A guy I had met before. Shaken hands with. Someone she had introduced me to months ago with a casual, "Oh, this is James, we work together." Before moving on like he was nothing. Nothing. I stared at his picture. My blood boiling. My chest tightening. This was him. This was the man my wife had been sneaking around with. The man she had been laughing with, kissing, touching, lying to me for. My vision blurred with rage. But through the haze, a dark, sharp thought cut through. She thought she could keep this secret. She thought she was in control. But now I had a name. And that changed everything. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the empty space beside me like a ghost pressing against my ribs. She hadn't come back. No texts, no calls, just silence. And I didn't break it either. What was there to say? I had seen everything I needed to see. I had the name, the number, the proof. There was no fixing this. No coming back. But I wasn't just going to let her slither out of this like it never happened. By morning, I had a plan. Kate always went into work early on Fridays. She liked to get a jump on things. Now, I knew what that really meant. She wasn't getting a jump on work. She was getting a jump on him. So I got up, showered, got dressed like it was any other day. But instead of heading to my own job, I drove straight to hers. I parked across the street from her office and waited. And at 7:42 a.m., she arrived. Not alone. His car pulled up first. A sleek black sedan. A few seconds later, she stepped out of the passenger seat, smoothing down her skirt, fixing her hair. She was smiling, laughing, saying something to him before closing the door, and watching him drive off like this was just another perfect morning. Like she hadn't obliterated our marriage the night before. The rage I felt in that moment was different from the night before. Last night was shock, confusion, pain. But this was pure clarity. She hadn't just cheated. She had done it so effortlessly, so comfortably, that it made me wonder how many times this exact morning had played out before. I waited until she walked into the building before getting out of my car. The second I stepped inside the lobby, the receptionist, Maggie, I think her name was, looked up and smiled. "Hey, Aaron. Kate's not expecting you, is she?" "No, she wasn't." I smiled back. "Nope, thought I'd surprise her." She nodded, completely unaware of what was about to happen, and waved me toward the elevators. I stepped inside, pressed the button for the third floor, and waited. When the doors opened, I walked down the hall, past desks, past coworkers who had no idea that their friendly, smiling Kate was a lying, cheating fraud. I reached her office and pushed the door open without knocking. She was at her desk, sipping coffee, scrolling through something on her screen. She looked up, and for 1 second, just one, I saw it, pure panic. Then she covered it, smiled. "Hey, babe, what are you doing here?" I shut the door behind me, slowly, letting the silence stretch. Then, I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped the screen, and held it up. The call logs, her texts to him, her smiling face, caught in a reflection from his car window. Her face drained of color. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "I know everything, Kate." And for the first time, she had nothing to say. She sat there, completely still, like a deer caught in headlights. Her fingers tightened around her coffee cup, but she didn't take a sip, didn't move, didn't even breathe. I stepped closer, just enough to see the tension ripple through her shoulders. "Good. Be nervous. Say something," I said. My voice was calm, too calm. Her lips parted, then closed again. She was scrambling, looking for an angle, a way out, but there wasn't one. Not this time. "How did you?" she started, but I cut her off. "Doesn't matter." I set my phone down on her desk, tapping the screen. "What matters is that I know, and I don't want to hear another single lie come out of your mouth." Her jaw clenched. She was still fighting it, still delusional enough to think she could spin this. "Fine." She exhaled sharply, rolling her eyes like I was annoying her. Like she was bored of this conversation already. "Yeah, okay. I've been seeing James." The way she said it, flat, casual, like she was admitting to forgetting to do the laundry, made my blood boil. I clenched my fists. "How long?" She sighed, glancing at the door like she wished she could walk out of her own office. "Does it really matter?" I slammed my hand down on her desk so hard her coffee cup rattled. "Yes, it matters." She flinched. Not because she was afraid of me, I would never lay a hand on her, but because she wasn't used to me raising my voice. Her mask slipped for a second. Then she straightened her back, lifted her chin, and said, 6 months. 6 months. The room went silent. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. I stared at her, at this woman I had spent years of my life with, at the person I thought I knew, and realized I had been living next to a stranger. I nodded slowly, let the weight of it settle in my chest. "So every time you told me you were working late, every time you climbed into bed next to me and said you were tired, every time I kissed you goodbye in the morning, you were lying to my face." She didn't say anything, because we both knew the answer. She just crossed her arms and muttered, "It wasn't a big deal. Not a big deal." I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's what you're going with? You wrecked our marriage for half a year, and now you want to act like it was some casual hobby." She rolled her eyes again. "Don't be dramatic, Aaron. It wasn't serious." The sheer audacity of it knocked the breath from my lungs. I stared at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I felt nothing. Not love, not pain, not even anger. Just disgust. I picked up my phone and stepped back. "You know what, Kate? I hope he was worth it. Because you just lost everything." And with that, I walked out. And this time I was the one who left her behind. The drive home was eerily quiet. No music. No thoughts even. Just the sound of the road beneath me, the rhythm of the tires humming against the pavement. I wasn't numb. I wasn't broken. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just done. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I had already made up my mind. There was no fixing this. No sitting down to talk things through. No, maybe we can work past this garbage. Some men might fight for their marriages, might beg for answers, might demand to know why. I didn't need to know why. I knew enough. I walked inside, grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, and started packing. I wasn't the one who should have to leave. This was my house too. But I didn't care. I just wanted out. I tossed in clothes, my laptop, my charger. Essentials. I wasn't thinking long-term. I just needed to be anywhere but here. I'd figure out my next steps later. Then the front door burst open. Kate. Her hair was still neatly done from work, but her eyes were wild. She had probably spent the last half hour replaying our confrontation, realizing she wasn't in control anymore. She slammed the door shut behind her. Are you serious? I didn't even glance up, just kept packing. Her heels clicked against the floor as she stormed toward me. You're leaving. I zipped up the duffel. Yep. She let out a short, humorless laugh. Oh my God. Aaron, are you really being this childish? That made me stop. Childish? I turned to her, shaking my head. That's what you think this is? Childish. She threw her hands in the air. You're throwing a tantrum over nothing. Nothing. That word. Again. I let out a breath, forcing myself to stay calm. So me finding out my wife has been screwing around for 6 months is nothing? She groaned, rubbing her temples like I was giving her a migraine. I already told you it wasn't serious. You're acting like I fell in love with him or something. I laughed low and bitter. Oh, well, that makes it so much better, Kate. Really? You didn't love him, so it doesn't count? She scowled. You're twisting my words. No, I'm hearing your words and they're pathetic. She crossed her arms, glaring at me like I was the one ruining her life. So that's it? You're just giving up? Walking away from everything we built? That almost made me laugh again. Everything we built? I slung the duffel bag over my shoulder and walked past her. No, Kate. You burned it down. I'm just walking away from the ashes. I made it to the door before she spoke again. You'll regret this. It was cold. Flat. Like a threat disguised as a fact. I turned back, meeting her eyes one last time. No. You will. And then I walked out. And for the first time in months, I could finally breathe. I checked into a hotel that night. Nothing fancy, just a quiet, anonymous room where I could sit with my thoughts and let the weight of everything settle. But I didn't feel broken. I felt free. For the first time in months, I wasn't sitting at home waiting for Kate to come back from another late night at the office. I wasn't questioning my own instincts, wasn't second-guessing the way she had been slipping away from me right in front of my eyes. I had seen the truth, and I had walked away from it. I lay on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, scrolling through my phone. My call log was still open, the proof of her betrayal right there in black and white. The texts, the calls, the lies. And then my screen lit up. Kate. Incoming call. I let it ring. It rang again. And again. Then a text came through. Where are you? Then another. Can we talk? Then, because she couldn't help herself. Are you really going to throw everything away over one mistake? One mistake. I exhaled slowly, setting my phone down on the nightstand. I didn't respond. I didn't owe her anything. I let myself sleep. By morning, my decision was made. I wasn't going back. Not to her. Not to that house. I called a lawyer, booked an appointment, started the process. And then, because I had one last thing to say, I finally answered one of Kate's calls. The second she heard my voice, she launched into her act. Aaron, please, can we just... I'm filing for divorce. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. You don't have to do this. I almost laughed. Yeah, I do. She tried everything. First, the fake remorse. It didn't mean anything. I was just confused. I wasn't thinking straight. Then the gaslighting. I wasn't happy, Aaron. You didn't even notice how distant we'd become. Then the threats. You'll regret this. You're not going to find someone else who loves you the way I do. I let her get it all out. Every last desperate, manipulative word. And when she was done, I simply said, I hope James was worth it. Then I hung up, blocked her number, and just like that, she was out of my life. Or so I thought. The weeks that followed were quiet, peaceful even. I found an apartment, met with my lawyer, moved my things out of the house while Kate was at work. She didn't fight me on it, not yet. Maybe she thought I'd come crawling back. Maybe she was too busy with James to care. Either way, I didn't hear from her again. At least not until 3 months later. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was in my new place, finally starting to feel like I had a life again, when my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something told me to check. I opened the text. "Aaron, please, I need to talk to you." I froze. It was her. I hadn't heard from Kate since I blocked her. But now, out of nowhere, she was reaching out. I should have ignored it. I should have let her sit in whatever mess she had made for herself. But curiosity got the best of me. I typed back one word. "Why?" The reply came almost instantly. "Please, just meet me. One time. I swear it's important." I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face. There was no way this was good. But something inside me, some sick need for closure, made me say, "Fine. Where?" I met her at a small cafe downtown. Neutral ground. I got there first, sat at a table near the window and waited. When she finally walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked different. The confidence, the superiority she had worn like armor for years was gone. She looked smaller, tired, like the life had been drained out of her. She sat down across from me, gripping her coffee cup with shaking hands. "Thank you for coming." I leaned back in my chair. "Make it quick." She swallowed, her throat working around the words she was too afraid to say. Then she finally blurted it out. "James left me." I stared at her, blinked. Then, despite everything, I laughed. I couldn't help it. She glared. "This isn't funny." "Oh, it's hilarious." I leaned forward. "So let me get this straight, you threw away our marriage for him and he ditched you?" Her lips pressed into a tight line. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I shook my head, still grinning. "Wow, Kate. I mean, really? Who could have seen that coming?" She exhaled sharply, gripping her coffee like it was the only thing keeping her together. "I know I screwed up. That's an understatement." She ignored that. I thought we had something. But once he knew you were gone, once he didn't have to sneak around anymore," she trailed off, looking down. "I finished for her. He got bored." She flinched. But she didn't deny it. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt satisfied watching her sit there, miserable and alone, drowning in the consequences of her own actions. But all I felt was nothing. Not anger, not pity, not even satisfaction. Just emptiness. I stood up, grabbing my coat. "Well, Kate, looks like you lost both of us." She reached out, grabbing my wrist. "Aaron, wait." Pulled away. "No," she looked up at me, eyes wide, pleading. "I miss you." I laughed again. A short, cold laugh. "No, Kate, you miss having someone. And it's not gonna be me." I turned and walked out. And this time I really knew I was never looking back. Kate didn't text me again after that. She didn't call. She didn't show up at my door, begging for another chance. Because she finally understood. There was nothing left to save. I wasn't her backup plan. I wasn't the safe option. The man she could fall back on now that her little office affair had gone up in flames. She had lost me, completely, and I had never felt lighter. The divorce went through without much of a fight. She knew she had no ground to stand on. We didn't have kids, and I made sure I walked away with what was mine. By the time it was over, I had a new routine, a new place, a new life, and I didn't waste a single second looking over my shoulder. But Kate had to sit with it. Sit with the wreckage she had created. Sit with the loneliness. Sit with the knowledge that she had traded something real for something worthless. And the best part? James never wanted her. Not really. He wanted the thrill, the stolen moments, the sneaking around, the forbidden fun. But the second there were no more secrets, no more risks, no more boundaries to break, he lost interest. She threw away a marriage for a man who saw her as temporary. And she had to live with that. I, on the other hand, didn't have to live with any of it. I moved forward. I started actually living. I went out more. I reconnected with old friends. I even started dating again. Not rushing into anything, just enjoying myself without the weight of betrayal sitting in my chest. One night, months later, I was out with some buddies when I saw her. Kate, alone, sitting at a booth in the corner of the bar, stirring a drink she hadn't touched. Her hair was done. Her makeup was perfect, but her eyes? Empty. And the best part? She saw me too. Our eyes met across the room, And for a second, just a second, I saw it. Regret. I smiled. Not cruelly, not smugly, just peacefully. Then I turned back to my friends, laughing at a joke I barely even heard, because she wasn't my problem anymore. And that felt damn good.